Racing is 80% mental, according to JGR Suzuki's Jeremy Albrecht, who is also James Bubba Stewart's former mechanic. If you haven't mastered your mental game and you race motocross, supercross, race anything for that matter with a motor, you've got a huge opportunity where you can improve and become a better version of yourself. Now let me ask you this. Do any of these statements sound like you at all? I was dialed in practice, but fell apart during the race. Or once one thing went wrong, it all went downhill. Or I just can't get comfortable and feel my flow. I just don't feel like myself out there. I felt tight the entire race. I just need to ride my own race. I just don't feel confident at all, and I completely choked out there. These are the types of phrases that people say that have an opportunity to master their mental game, master their mindset, and become a much, much better racer with better outcomes, better results, win more races, win more championships. But you have to understand, in order to do this, Serena Williams, yes, she's tennis, but she makes one very good point, which is the competition is won before the event. And a lot of that is your preparation, and that's not just physical, that's not just technique, it's also mastering your mental game. But the $1 million question to ask yourself is, how much time do you put in your mental game? Now, most people respond with a very low, if not zero number to that. So this is a huge opportunity for you, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more. This video is perfect for you if you want to learn some free tips on mastering the mental game and seeing what value it can provide for you in your racing program. My name is Dr. Jake Cavanaugh of RAK Racing. I'm a high-performance mindset coach for motorsports athletes, focused primarily with motocross and supercross. Let's get into this. Ryan Dungey will be one of the first to admit the mental game was a huge opportunity for him that he didn't catch on till later in his career. I teamed up with AJ Catanzaro in 2018 to do a James Bubba Stewart tribute. We got second and almost won against Carson Brown. He knows the power of the mental game. The second year at Red Bull Straight Rhythm, I paired up with Tyler Bowers, and we defeated the great, the one, the only Travis Pastrana in the 500cc class at Red Bull Straight Rhythm 2019. Tyler Bowers knows the power of the mind. Riders like Corey Alexander, who got second in the championship last year, knows the power of the mindset and has done well with our coaching program. Cole Zabala was able to use the power of his mindset through our program and secured a ride with Team Honda last year in 2021 and is totally excited about what he is capable of achieving in 2022. Many people don't even realize it, but even Cooper Webb has had a mental coach. He used a mental coach which was one of the top mental coaches in F1 and still is, and used him in his career to get him to that level that he performs at now. But a lot of these top athletes don't share that information with you. Why? Because they feel it's the edge that they have that the other athletes don't. In the remainder of this video, I want to share with you some powerful, actionable tips that you can put into action in your race program starting today. So the rest of this video is going to provide multiple points for you to take home, figure out what you can do with them. I'm going to guide you step by step. We're going to offer some value right here, right now. And then at the end, if you say, hey, I want to learn more, we're also going to share with you a little bit more about our program and what our offer is to you today. So let's get into it. Now, one of the number one things that you need to realize, and this is huge, is you are not your results. When your identity, your sense of self, your ego is attached to your results, you put yourself at a huge risk. Risk for many, many things like not being able to manage your emotions properly, getting frustrated when things don't go your way. When your expectations are not met, sometimes you can fall apart. And sometimes when these emotions get out of control, you can start to make mistakes that can end up in injury, and they often do. And whether it's injury or falling 2, 3, 5, 10 places back, or not even finishing a race, you got to understand the power of emotions is important. And when you attach your emotional kind of identity, if you will, your sense of self to your results or your outcomes, you're putting yourself at risk. So what can you do to overcome that? Well, instead of identifying with your results, meaning that if you get first place, you're on top of the world. Who isn't? Okay? The problem is the risk is how often are you winning those races? Most of the time, we're not winning. If you're on a gate with 40 people, the odds of you winning are not high, okay? No matter how fast you are. We have to be prepared for the adversity and the mistakes that are going to come our way and the failures. And so when all of a sudden you find yourself in 9th place, if your identity is attached to that outcome, you will feel horrible. So how will your practice sessions go that week? Not so good. You'll lose motivation. You'll lose interest. You won't be excited. You'll treat your girlfriend like crap. That's never good. And so you have to realize that your emotions, when they're tied to your results, is not good. Now, I'm not saying that results are not important. What I am saying is this. If you need to have an identity, consider this. Consider your identity to be something you can control. Because race results, there's so many variables you can't control. Like track conditions, if someone T-bones you, if your bike blows up. Yes, you can somewhat control that, but for the most part, these things are somewhat out of your control. What you can control is your attitude, your effort, your level of focus. So these things are what we call more like process or controllables. These are things that you can place your identity on. In other words, you can be the type of person who never gives up. You can be the type of person that is disciplined. You can be the type of racer that stays focused and looks at everything as a challenge and not just a threat. These are some powerful things that you can identify with and start to work on becoming to become a more mentally tough racer. Now, let's talk about challenge versus threat. This is huge, so listen up. This is one of my favorite mental game tips that I'm going to share with you right here, right now. If you have adversity, which we all experience at some point in our life, you've got a choice. And that choice is, am I going to view this as a challenge or am I going to view this as a threat? If you view this as a threat, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go into either fight, flight, or freeze. You're going to have emotions of fear. Your vasoconstriction, your bronchoconstriction, you're not going to breathe as well. You're going to tighten up. You're going to feel that lactic acid burn, right? Much, much earlier. When you look at things as a threat, you go into that fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, let's say we take that same situation, but we have a different perspective on it, and we look at it as a challenge instead of a threat. Well, guess what? A challenge, first of all, completely reverses all the physiological outcomes I just mentioned. You experience bronchodilation, vasodilation, less stress, less anxiety, more focus. You're not burning through glucose energy, right? You're also not going to burn through enough glucose to get brain fog. You'll be making better decisions. And on top of it, when we talk about challenge and experiencing challenge and having the perspective of challenge in any sort of event you're in, invites you and brings you closer to achieving a flow state. So we're not going to cover flow state in detail today, but I will tell you, looking at things as a challenge instead of a threat is one of the number one skills that you can start taking action on now. And so what does that look like? Well, what that looks like is whenever adversity comes to you, think about what your default response is. Because don't forget, 95% of how we think, feel, and act is a learned pattern response. And so that learned pattern response is one that often is automated until we kind of put a little stick in the wheel or whatever you want to call it to kind of stop and break that pattern of being ourselves. And so once we do that and invite the opportunity to respond instead of react and choose the way that we respond, we put ourselves in the driver's seat instead of riding in the back seat. And so one of the ways that we can do that and what that would look like when we talk about challenge versus threat is to have a set of mantras or statements that you make, that you repeat over and over and over again until they become automated when you do face adversity. Something such as, when I see a challenge, I get excited. Or challenges to me are an opportunity to grow and to learn and to improve. Things simple as that. That's all you need. It's changing your perspective. Because don't forget, when you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. It's that simple, okay? Now let's talk about the power of emotions. This is one of the most powerful things you can manage because your emotions guide your next thought, guide your next emotion, and also guide the decisions you make and the actions you take. So when we talk about emotions or self-regulation and controlling your emotions, this is a huge, huge opportunity for you to improve. Let me give you an example. Let's say that someone comes in on you, kind of T-bones you a little bit, maybe a lot. Maybe Tyler Bowers happens to be on the track, T-bones you, tries to take you out, but you don't go down, you stay upright. However, you've got two different ways you can respond to that. One is to get frustrated. Let's go down that road. You choose to be frustrated, you choose to feel angry, you choose to take it personal, and you get that rage feeling. All right, well, for some people, they might say, oh, that's good, that's energizing. It's certainly energy. Is it the right energy? I would argue not. But some people will thrive on that energy and they'll start to ride after Tyler. Now, let's just assume you could catch him, which you probably couldn't, but if you could, you would likely make decisions in that emotional state that don't serve you. What would those look like? You might try T-boning him. You might try coming in on him. He sees you doing it. He checks up. You get sent right over the edge of the berm. You crash, you're out, you're done. Maybe you even get injured, okay? So your emotions guided you towards making decisions through the lens of anger, through the lens of frustration. This is not the lens that you want to be making race decisions in. This is going to cost you. And what we often see is we'll see riders, and I'm not going to call any of them out, but some of them do it classically. If you start to watch motocross and supercross, you'll see some of these riders. And I can name them for sure, but I will not do that today. Riders that make one mistake, and then you can see there's another mistake, and then yet another. This is a classic example of an untrained mind and someone who cannot regulate their emotions. And there are consequences that can be grave from this because you're going to make a mistake. If you race, you're going to make a mistake. The question is, how do you respond and overcome it? What happens next, right? And if you allow your emotions to get the best of you, you're done. In my opinion, you're done. And in other words, what do I mean by done? All right, maybe you'll finish the race, but think about this. Let's say you make one mistake that costs you 2 seconds. Okay, that was 2 seconds you needed. I get it. Super important. I understand. However, if you then make 2 more consecutive mistakes on that same lap, let's say one's another 2-second one and one's 4. Now that 2-second mistake has turned into a total of 8, if my math is correct. So look at the difference there. Now, a rider, a racer who has a trained mindset, who has strong, mentally tough design skills that they work on and that they are aware of and that becomes automated for them, they're going to respond differently. They're simply going to go in, hey, whatever happened, happened, focus forward. I've got to get by this guy. I'm going to ride smart, maintain my breathing, maintain my focus. Not much of an emotional response. That person is going to still ride their own race. They're going to still feel like themselves and they're going to still perform. This is someone who might be considered stoic. A perfect example of this would be someone like Cooper Webb. Cooper Webb, you can do whatever you want. He just doesn't care. If anything, he kind of adds fuel to him, but it's not rage. It's not anger. It's a focused intention to execute and to come and take the position back. And so one of the skills that we coach in my coaching program is the art and skill of letting go. Because think about it, that's really what you need to do in this case, right? When is the last time you had something not go the way that you expected or you feel someone wronged you, right? If you place a large or a big emotional value on what took place, what's going to be the result of that? Well, the emotional attachment is based on the value and significance you give things. So in other words, the weight on my shoulders is a function of the significance I place on the event or experience that took place. For example, if you come up to me at the track and say something super horrible to me, if I take it personally and I think it's a personal attack on me, and maybe you hit like a word that I was picked on in high school and you used a word that maybe re-triggered some of the events in my past, and all of a sudden I put a higher emotional value than I should have, that weight on my shoulders and that emotional attachment to what went wrong or what was said might stay with me for the rest of the day. It might stay with me for a week or maybe even a month. And for some people, it's their entire lives, okay? So one of the things you need to learn is the art and skill of letting go. And first of all, an example of that would be, once again, you come into the first turn, hole shot. You got the hole shot. The guy in second place who's not even near you just comes in and uses you as a burn. Okay. Are you going to place a big emotional value on that? Or are you going to be a smart trained rider that's got a dialed mental game? And are you going to let go? Do you know how to let go? right? These are the things that are important, because if you know how to let go and you don't have that emotional attachment to what took place, you can now put your energy not on the past, meaning what took place, but you can move it towards the future as to what you're going to do next. That's a much better use of your resources, your time, your focus, your energy, and your attention. Now, this video definitely wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about fear. You need to realize one thing about fear. Fear of judgment, fear of the other's opinions, which, by the way, is one of the most prolific modern day fears, is fear of other people's opinions. Fear of failure. We have this fear. What's interesting about fear is what harms us most about fear is the illusion and our emotional response to it then does the actual possible outcome. Now, let me explain. 90 to 95% of the fears that we have don't ever come true. So think about all the fears that you have had in your past. Imagine if at that moment you feel fear, you could shift your perspective using some of the skills that I teach and I coach, and you change and you basically dissolve that fear because you realize that fear is an illusion. And when we talk about fear, a lot of times people say fear is future events appearing real. They appear real, right? No different than if you go to a haunted house and, I don't know, you see a zombie, you kind of get freaked out. It's not a zombie, right? But we have that emotional response of fear because it's the illusion that it's a zombie. Just like a fear of big jumps, like we let fear paralyze us. And don't forget, fear activates that fight or flight response. And so when you have fear, what's the first thing you do? Usually you flee or you freeze. And so fear is one of the number one things that holds us back from racing to our potential, living to our potential, getting the jobs that we want, the girlfriend we want, the boyfriend we want, the life we want. So managing fear is a huge opportunity for you. Now, if you watch this far, I want to add some more value. You know what? Why not? I'm here to serve. I'm here to help you guys. I want you to see the value of what we do in the mental game. And so I'm going to keep proving it to you. Why not? So this is a powerful skill that I used with Matt Field. Matt Field last season was a 14th place finisher. This season, we almost won the championship until the last round at Irwindale. He's a Formula Drift, Pro Drift competitor, I guess would be the term, right? And so, anyways, one of the things that we used with him that really developed his confidence and his ability to deal with nerves and pressure, which a lot of us feel, especially top paid athletes, professional athletes, is reframing or shifting our perspective on what visceral feeling we have, right? So let me explain. If all of a sudden your palms get balmy, your heart rate goes up, you start to sweat, you start to kind of get butterflies, your eyes start wandering, okay? There's two ways you can interpret that. Because don't forget, at this point, everything I just told you, I didn't tell you what emotion you're feeling yet. I described a sensation, a set of sensations. What's interesting, and not many people know this, is that your body creates the sensations, but your mind interprets them as an emotion, okay? So let's say my heart's rate, and you're gonna love this example, it's one of my favorites. So you have all those sensations I mentioned. Then all of a sudden, let's say I was to ask you, what emotion am I feeling? Many of you would probably respond by saying, wow, you sound pretty stressed, you sound pretty strung out. Well, guess what? If I'm excited, I have the same exact thing. My heart rate is up. I'm like, let's go, let's go. I start to sweat. My heart rate's up. I'm moving around. I'm looking around. Same exact firing of the nerves within my body that I label as excitement can also be labeled as pressure, stress, or anxiety by someone. So simply finding strategies to shift your perspective on the sensations your body is delivering and sending that are interpreted by your mind, just that act alone is a huge opportunity for those of you who feel pressure or race day anxiety or even the day before anxiety. You can obviously find some tools to shift this, turn it into excitement. We can share and help you with that. So if you've gotten to this far in the video, obviously you know that if you don't change anything, nothing's going to change, right? We know this. And so I'm gonna make you an offer. Go ahead, go to our website, rak-racing.com, or just type in RAK, R-A-K, no C, R-A-K Racing into Google, will come right up. Go to our website, call the phone number, reach out to us, all right? And that number is easy to remember. It's 951-999-8423. Reach out to us and say, hey, I want a free tip. Talk to me. Do you think you can help me? Where are we at here? Do I even have a problem? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. And I don't want to call it a problem. I take that back. It's an opportunity. Because honestly, your perspective on all of this should be, hey, this is an opportunity for me to improve as a racer, as a person, as a husband, as a brother, as a son. Because one thing we find with the mental game is when you focus your energy and attention on the mental game and you improve it to get better race results, you actually are practicing many of these skills off track and your life improves as well. We've got an infinite number of testimonials on our site. You really should watch 1, 2, 3 of these videos and you will see the value in our program. We have a one-on-one program, which is usually filled up, and that's usually reserved for professional athletes. Right now, we only have one spot. That spot could be gone by today. But we do have a group coaching program for amateur, expert, any level athlete, truthfully. And it's an online program Monday through Friday that has gotten huge positive reviews. We just revamped it completely and it was already good. Now it is excellent. And so if you want to gain access to that, it is a fraction of the cost of what we charge our professional athletes because we work with them one-on-one on a daily basis, often going to their events as well. But the group coaching program, which will suit most of you, is absolutely amazing. We always invite you to come in for a free class or even a free week to check it out. Honestly, I don't know if anyone's ever checked it out and not signed up. I want to say it's 100%, but don't hold me that. It's at least 90-something%, put it that way. So reach out to me. Once again, my name is Dr. Jake Cavanaugh of RAK-racing.com. Well, actually, RAK-racing.com. Reach out to me, call me, 951-999-VIBE. Easy way to remember it. Look forward to hearing from you. Take care.